Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to the Resident and Family Support Council that we hold on the second and the fourth Tuesday of every month. You may see that you don't see my face today, which is fantastic, and you're seeing all these beautiful ladies sitting here at the table. We are actually in a long-term care community in the Chicago suburbs today, and we're going to be talking about residents' rights. Just a couple of other pieces of information before I get into why it was so important for us to be here today. I just want to remind everybody that we record all of our meetings and then we post them to YouTube. And Stephen, I know, is working his magic behind the background, putting all the links into the chat. These meetings are also the link that you got to get into today's meeting. Remember, is always the same link to get into every meeting. And if for any reason you do not have that link, you can always go to the Ombudsman Resident and Family Support Council page on the internet, and you can click in the center of the page. There is a link that will take you right to the meeting. We also record these meetings, and they go on YouTube, and you can access the recording at that same site. We have probably about 80 at least now, 80 videos up there. We've been doing this for 3 years. And I have to say, this is the first time I've been in a long-term care community speaking with some people who live in the community. So I'm really excited about this. As we have been talking about, last time Stephen did a presentation talking about how to celebrate Residents' Rights Month. And we've heard from ombudsmen across the state who are doing some really exciting things. And the reason why we celebrate Residents' Rights Month is to really bring people's awareness that people who live in long-term care have rights. They're there for very important reasons to make sure that people have the quality to their life that they deserve. But sometimes it just sounds like words. And we really want to make sure that what we're hearing, we bring it home and we bring it home to the heart. So that's why we wanted to come and have this meeting today live with some residents who live in long-term care. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to introduce the ladies. And if you guys, we've got Irma. Irma, do you just want to say hello?
Hello.
And then we've got Pam.
Hello, everybody out there.
And then we've got Mandy.
Hello, everyone.
And we have, Roseanne. We have Roseanne and we have Roseanne. So hopefully you can see everybody pretty well and you'll be able to hear everybody. Stephen, let me know if when we're talking about this, if you can't hear anybody.
Will do.
Thank you. So just to remind everybody, this is October and it's Residents' Rights Month. And one of the things that we really need to focus in on is, what are residents' rights? What are they all about? Why do we have residents' rights? As ombudsmen, we're advocates, and we advocate for those who live in long-term care. And residents' rights are the core to what it is that we do. We want to make sure that everybody knows these, understands these, and get these honored. And so I wanted to ask you guys that first important question is about residents' rights. Are you told about residents' rights when you come into the long-term care community? Have you all been told about your rights and what your rights are?
We
when
get
you
a
moved in?
booklet.
You get a booklet. Okay, does the booklet look something like this? So this is a booklet that actually is available through the Ombudsman's office. We also have pamphlets.
Yes, we get those, yeah.
That may look like that as well. So no, if you want one of these booklets, you can reach out to your ombudsman and they can give you one of those booklets, because we typically carry them in that bag that we carry with us every time we come. But if they don't have one with them, they will make sure they bring you one. The other thing that we also like to do is give bunches of these to the long-term care communities so they can just give them to all of you as well, particularly when you're admitted to the long-term care community, because they should be sharing your rights upon admission. And then every year thereafter, they should be going over these rights with you. So we want to make sure that you're understanding your rights and that you know your rights. And right there, just understanding how you're supposed to get to those is an important thing to know.
We also go over one right every month in resident council.
That is a fantastic idea. Going over a right every month in resident council helps bring awareness to that particular right, keeps it on everybody's mind, and you can talk about what that looks like. And that's a great idea. I commend your long-term care community for doing something like that. And if anybody works in a long-term care community or their loved one lives in a long-term care, or you live in a long-term care community, that might be a great hint from Heloise, or should I say, hint from Pam, on what it is that you should be doing. So great idea, really great idea. I'm going to go through and I'm going to read those rights. And while I'm reading those rights, I want you to think about what it feels like when those rights are honored. And then we're going to ask the next question about what does it feel like when they're not honored. Okay, so I'm just going to read them off right now. So you have the right to dignity and respect. And that comes along with making choices, treating you with dignity and respect, and providing equal access to care regardless of your payer source, your diagnosis, or anything like that. You have the right to safety. You must not be abused, neglected, or exploited by anybody. We want to make sure that people feel that they're free from retaliation, which this can be a tough one. This retaliation can be very difficult for others to see, but we know what it feels like when it happens. The facility must provide services to keep you physically and mentally at your highest level of being. The building must be clean, it must be safe, and it must look like home, have a sense of home about it. You have to be free from any physical or chemical restraints. That means nobody can tie you down to a chair. And also chemically, people shouldn't be giving you drugs to sedate you so that you cannot function the way you want to be functioning. You may be given medicine only with your physician's prescription. And you have the right to purchase and use an electronic monitoring device, meaning you can have a camera in your room that a loved one could have access to be able to see what's happening in your room as well. And the next right is you have the right to participate in your care. And this is a long one, but it's something that's really important because we had conversations before we even began recording today, and this was something that we were talking about. You may participate in developing your own care plan. The care plan is central to being able to participate in your care. You should be able to attend your care conference. I always say it's not nice to talk about people behind their back. So we should be including people in conversations when we're talking about them. You may choose to have family a part of that, or anyone else that you want. And that could even be another resident if that's what it is that you want, because you don't have a representative, a family member, anyone else. You've got somebody in the long-term care community that you feel that you want them to know what's going on with you. You should receive services and items that are in that care plan. If it's written in that care plan, it becomes almost like the directions for how to care for me as a human being. And those need to be adhered to. You should be able to have a copy of that care plan if you would like a copy of that care plan. You have the right to choose your own physician. We were talking about that. You can choose your own doctor. Your facility must tell you the name and the specialty of each doctor responsible for your care and how to contact that doctor. You have the right to be in charge of taking your own medicine if your care plan and your team and your doctor say that you can do that. You have the right to refuse, request, or discontinue any treatment. You have the right to complete information about your medical condition in a language that you can understand. You have the right to choose activities in your own schedules. That includes going to bed and waking up in the morning. You have the right to make a living will, to be able to have a durable power of attorney, a declaration of mental health treatment, a post or a do not resuscitate order, all those wishes that you want for yourself at the end of your life. You may refuse to participate in experimental treatment. Your facility must allow you to see your records within 24 hours of your request excluding weekends and holidays. And you may purchase a part of copy or all of your records at a reasonable fee within 2 working days of being able to see your records or that request. You have the right to move out of the building if you don't want to live there anymore. But that has to be with your determination. The building can't tell you when they're going to kick you out. That can't happen unless there's proper procedures for that. We refer to that as an involuntary discharge. And your discharge and steps to achieve the goals that you want should be included in your care plan. If you want to have discharge plans, they should be included in that care plan for you. Then you have the right to privacy and confidentiality. You have the right for that your personal records are confidential and your medical and personal care are completely private. People must knock on your door before they come in. Your facility may not give information about you to anyone who's unauthorized unless you say that they can have that information. You have the right to have private visits of your own choosing and at an hour of your own choosing. So it doesn't have to be during visiting hours. It could be later in the evening if that's when the person can only get here. You may ask any visitor to leave anytime you want, just like your own home. You have the right to receive and make phone calls in private. You have your facility must deliver and send your mail uninterrupted, unopened. And if you are married, you have the right to live with your spouse if you would like to live with your spouse. There's rights regarding money, being able to manage your own money, being able to, if your facility manages your money and you get Medicaid, your facility must tell you if the savings come within $200 or more. You may see your financial records. Personal property, you have the right to that, to wear your own clothing, to keep your own property in your room, to have a safe place to keep your belongings, and to keep your property from being lost. Your rights in paying for your care and getting Medicaid and Medicare. If you're paying, you have all those rights. You have the rights to stay in the facility. You have the right to keep living in the home that you call home, which is this place. You must be given notice if they're going to be a discharge for any reason. And there's many caveats that go along with that. And you have the right to appeal that notice if they say that they're going to have you leave the building. You have the right as a citizen and as a facility resident, you do not lose any rights because you moved into a long-term care community. And you have the right for freedom of religion. You can have whatever religion you want to, the right to vote, the right to participate in social and community activities, to see all inspections, any inspections that the building undergoes, you have the right to see those. You have the right to meet with the long-term care ombudsman whenever you desire, and that should be private if that's what you desire. And you have the right to make complaints against the place where you live. And there's numbers that should be posted throughout your building for that. Now, I know I just gave you guys a lot of information. So with that all being said, what does it feel like when your rights are honored? And Mandy, I'm going to ask that question to you first. What does it feel like when your rights are being honored by the building that you live in?
It makes you feel comfortable, like you're at home, at your home. Just feel uplifted and that these people care enough to respect us and take care of us as we would take care of ourselves if we were able to in our own home.
And I think you bring an important point, like you would be able to take care of yourself.
Right.
This is your life.
Yes.
And if you can't do that right now, you are depending on someone else to do that
Yes.
for you.
It's hard, it touches the heart once you're treated nicely. And some people here too go above and beyond, which is extra special.
That is.
And it means a lot to all residents that I've talked with.
Irma, if you could talk a little bit more, then what does that mean? An extra lot, extra. What does that mean for you? When someone says what Mandy just said, it means an extra lot to you. Explain that.
It feels like you're at home. Like you are at home, and it makes you feel warm. and wanted,
Wanted,
yes.
that's a really great.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, I
wanna
think,
add?
you feel valued.
Yes,
Um, and you feel the respect that you'd like to think that any of your, that your family would receive if they were
Yeah.
getting that type of care. So you feel part of a family. As opposed to just someone, delivering you care who doesn't really, you don't have a connection to.
And Rosemary, do you have anything you want to add to that?
makes me feel safe,
Safe?
yes.
Okay, so I'm hearing some very pronounced words: wanted, respected, family, safe. I think that's such a great way of putting all of this. So as a staff member, understand that when you honor our rights, as we live in this building, this, what may be an institution, when you look at me and you honor my right, it takes away some of that institutional feeling and makes me feel better.
Yeah, right.
Right.
So let's flip the question. What does it feel like when your rights aren't honored?
Oh, my goodness.
Why don't you go first then, Irma?
It makes me feel insecure and not wanted and despised. It makes me feel like I'm despised.
Despised.
Yes, it can get that bad.
Okay, okay. I apologize right now. I'm just looking for my charger because my battery is gonna go down on my laptop, I'm afraid. And if that happens, I don't know what we're gonna do. So, because I didn't bring my charger with me for some unknown reason. Can you guys talk to that a little bit more?
Sure. I feel frustrated.
Mhm.
And I'm a former nurse of 40 years. And I worked predominantly in an environment where we were taught and expected to carry out the phrase patient first. And so when I don't feel that, it's frustrating because having lived it, I actually know it's generally not a difficult thing to do.
Right.
It feels worse though, that's just not fun. It feels worse. It makes you insecure and scared.
Sure.
Yeah, scared's a
that's
good
under-
word.
And I think that may depend upon how much care you personally
I need you
need.
a lot.
Yes, I think that
Right.
can change your perspective dramatically and understandably.
I
Yeah,
need a lot, Miss Rose doesn't need any.
right.
And I look at it too where, me too, I don't need a lot, but I look at other people in the center
Mhm.
who need it and aren't able to, express it or are afraid to ask for it. So that makes me really upset, frustrated, not just for me, but for the other residents who really need the help and aren't getting the right help from the facility.
So one of the things I'm hearing is, you guys, I'm hearing very strong, you want to advocate for each other as well.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
That is
Yeah.
something that's extremely
Yeah.
important to all of you. I love that resounding yes. Yes.
And it comes up frequently in resident council
Mhm.
where people are not only talking about their own experiences, but they're speaking of
Yes.
something that they have seen with a roommate, a cohort down the
Yeah.
line. And it's really nice to see that people are looking out for one
Right.
another.
Yes, it's brought up quite a bit, like Pam said.
That makes you feel like you're in a family. We
Yes,
are a
right.
family.
We all look out for each other.
Yeah,
And it's a great feeling knowing that we do all look out for each other.
right,
It does, that makes you feel safe and wanted.
yeah.
So,
And that's important. So when you don't feel cared for, when you don't feel that your rights are being listened to, it has an extreme negative effect on what your life is looking like.
yes, the anxiety, stress.
It makes you wanna cry.
It
Yeah.
makes you want to cry. You know what? That's how probably puts it all in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Right.
It just makes you want to
Yeah.
cry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Visuals, it's a verb.
Yeah,
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm just keeping an eye, the outlet is not charging my laptop, so I'm gonna continue to be looking for another outlet. Did any right in particular really reach out to you that you want to talk about?
For me, I lived alone. And I, have been on my own for all my life, and so it was difficult to come into an environment where I had to share a room with somebody else, even though I've been very blessed to have lovely roommates. But I think privacy is important to me, and it's hard when people don't necessarily, knock at the door and just come into the room and don't, think like, well, you wouldn't do that in someone's home.
Right.
You'd never walk through the front door,
yeah,
without knocking and letting them know. And that privacy goes to, potentially overhearing people talk about other residents that we shouldn't hear about. It's because it's really, or of fellow staff members talk about other fellow staff members. That is bothersome to me because it when people overhear that, they can't help but be affected by it, even if they have not been directly experienced that particular factor.
You don't directly have to experience it. It has an effect in you when you see it.
yeah,
Right.
right, that's true.
And I find that interesting because that right to privacy, I haven't heard people talk about it as much in regards to when they're talking about other residents in my earshot. Or when even staff are talking about each other in that negative
Yeah.
manner, it's
Yeah.
gonna affect me when that person's got to care for
Right.
us.
Of course.
That's a very
Yes.
interesting perspective. I have not heard that before.
Yeah, or they want to share it with you, and I will just point blank say,
Right,
I don't want to hear it. Go either to that person or go to your supervisor. I can't help, I can't resolve this
you're
for
not a
you.
therapist.
Well, and I don't have
No.
I don't have the authority
Right,
to do it.
Yeah. Right. There's several, that that hit home, but again, I'm able to take care of myself, but having, somebody take care of you, take care of other residents, and they're not doing the proper job, or they're rough with another patient. They're not changing, just all sorts of different stuff like that, so they deserve more respect than that when they're being taken care of, I think. And that hits home, for me. I took care of my parents at home. So I expect, I have my father here. I expect him to have the same care here that he had at the home.
Right.
And he's here now too. So, I've had him, taking care of him myself also. So I want him to have the same care.
Nobody wants to be in that position that they need a lot of care.
Right.
If I had four
The
strokes,
independence,
so,
right? The
What do you-
independence kind of
Right.
taken away.
right.
And so because we started talking about privacy and we go to independence.
Yeah.
So is there that piece that if I don't have privacy, I'm not as independent anymore because somebody violated my privacy, so it makes me feel that they intruded into my world, which makes me no longer feel independent.
Well, and I feel like, I'm put in a position where I'm sharing something that I don't necessarily want to share with anybody. You could be on a phone call, or it can be something simple, but
Mhm.
it is frustrating that, again, that knock at the door doesn't come and await to say, come in.
Yeah.
I think that's a big clue, because I think so
Yes,
many people in long-term care have learned to do the
They knock.
Yes.
knock, but then they just walk right in.
Yes.
Right.
It's,
yes.
I call it the knock and run. You know,
Yeah.
it's just that, that's what the people do, instead of the respect, because I would never just knock on somebody's door and walk in the front door.
Right.
No, of
Well,
course
I might
not.
do with my really
Right.
good girlfriend across the
Right.
street. You know, we
Right.
might just, because I'm like, you know, she knows I'm coming over. But I
Yeah.
wouldn't just walk into her house if she didn't know I was coming
Right,
over.
yes.
I would always, even though she's a very good friend of mine, I would never do that.
No.
Because I don't know what she's in the middle of, and she might even not want me to come in. She might be home, but she doesn't want me to come in because she might be tired. She might be on the phone. She might have
Right.
something that she has going on in her life. She doesn't need company at that given moment.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to remember, I guess, when people come into our room, they are company.
Yes. Yeah,
They're company. Even though they might work here, they're still company.
yeah,
They are still company in your room.
It's
Yeah.
not their room.
It's not their room.
right,
And if you lived in a house or an apartment or even a studio apartment, it was probably more space than the room that you have.
Right.
yeah,
And if this is the only area that you can
Yeah.
call your own,
Right.
it can feel like very territorial.
yes,
This is my
Yeah.
territory, and people better be respectful of
right,
it.
It
Right.
does.
And you know, right now, we have the additional stressor of having, because we had the fire, we have 22 resident rooms that are uninhabitable. So we had to relocate many people to different rooms with different roommates. They don't necessarily have all their own belongings in the room that they're in now. And so, you know, having all that respect for your privacy and just your
Yeah,
belongings
yeah.
is really critical right now. Because, you know, you feel like the thing that you felt at home has been taken away from you,
Yeah.
not purposely,
Right,
obviously,
yeah.
but nevertheless, it disrupts your routine. And let's face it, the older we get, the harder it is for change. So,
And you said it, I
and
hear
it,
you.
and it was hard for the staff too.
Oh, yeah.
It was
Oh.
difficult for them.
Yeah, and I didn't realize
Yeah.
you guys had a fire here, so
We
that
did.
can also
Yeah.
create turmoil in a family, right?
Yes.
And then
Oh,
if you're
yeah.
not treating like a family, it can create even more turmoil,
Right.
Yeah.
because there's already dissension. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that can be hard. Are there any other rights that come to your mind that you're like, yes, this is a really important right to me personally? How about, let's talk about that care plan.
Yes.
We talked about that right to participate in your own care.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? I know we had some conversations about care plan. And as a person who worked in long-term care, I don't think sometimes the staff put the value in that care plan process. Like people who it's their life story, the value that it needs to play there. I know we had some conversations about this beforehand. Any feeling or any thoughts on what that right to be able to participate in your own care looks like?
I know that my family and the family conference, and I wasn't included. I wasn't aware that I could have been.
So there was there was a care plan meeting, a family conference,
Yeah.
and you weren't included on the conversation. And you didn't even know that you could be included.
No.
And like I said, it's rude to talk about people
Mhm.
behind their back. So they just chose to talk about you behind your back. And that's not a good thing.
No.
And so now you know. That's why knowing our rights are very important.
Next time they have one, I'll make sure to attend.
Yeah, you're supposed to be
Yeah.
notified,
Yeah.
Roseanne. You're supposed to be told when the next care conference is scheduled so that you can attend.
And actually, you're
They can-
supposed to give permission for them to
Yeah,
attend,
right.
not the other way around.
Oh,
Yeah,
You're
Yeah.
the one that gets to say who you want to be involved in that meeting, because this is your life.
okay.
Yeah.
So. Go ahead,
Hey,
Stephen.
Lee.
Yep.
We can't see Rose on the camera. Just so you
I had
know,
to a little bit. There we go.
that little bit to the left, and we can
Now we
get
can't see Irma. So I had to move the camera. Oh, you know what? I can move it back because we found an extension cord I-
perfect.
to where it was.
But yeah, so what I always told people about care plan meetings is if you find out that the care plan meeting was held without you, then you found out that there was a meeting about you that was held, but it wasn't a care plan meeting. because you weren't there. So you have every right to demand a new care plan meeting be held with you there.
So part of this is not everybody heard you, Stephen, so I'm just gonna repeat that. So Stephen was saying that it's your care plan meeting. So if a meeting was held without you, that was not a care plan meeting. That should not be counted as a care plan meeting, because they have to do those every 3 months in a nursing home.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, every 3 months, they've got to have a care plan meeting. So that is part of it. It should be counted as a care plan meeting then, because you were not included in on that meeting. So how could they have a meeting to talk about your care when the person's care they're talking about is not
Wasn't
about that
there.
meeting?
Yeah,
And
So
Lee, we
create some awareness here,
yeah,
Stephen.
me too. I didn't,
Yeah.
I don't remember having.
I don't do that.
Yeah.
And you know, during COVID, a lot of buildings changed the way these looked. Because of COVID, we couldn't get together in group meeting situations. So now they might look like a phone call sometimes, but we're out of COVID.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
should be back to, because I want to be face to face with somebody when they're explaining
Right.
stuff to me about me.
Yes.
Or I want them to see that this is the arm that hurts me,
Yes.
or, you know, that I can't see. I used to be able to read like this and now I can't. So I really need to see the eye doctor. You can see those types of things,
Yes.
you know, so they can see my body, see my strengths and see my weaknesses, so that we can work on this together collectively.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah. So I think we've learned something,
Yeah.
all of you here in the room, by talking about residents'
Mhm.
rights, is you have the right to attend your own care plan meeting. You have the right to request a meeting anytime. The minimum is they have to have them every 3 months. But they can have them more than that at the request of the resident or the resident's
Mhm.
representative.
And Lee, we had a question in the comments.
Mhm.
Will you cover instances where the resident does not have capacity to understand, i.e. dementia?
And I can talk to that. I still feel that everybody should be included in the room, even the individual who may not have full understanding about what's happening. Because when we're talking about people, it is rude to talk about them behind their back. So they should be in that space, because you never know what somebody can contribute. And even if it's just, I've been in the room before where people have said they don't remember information. And I've sat there and I said, I'm going to give you a number, the number 10. Let's talk about it in a couple of minutes. And I'll come back 10 minutes later and I'll say, what was that number I gave you? And they'll say 10. I'm thinking they can remember information just from what we just witnessed. So to me, having the person in the room, whether they can be completely cognitively alert or not completely cognitively alert, or they've lost their voice in some manner, does not mean that we still should not have them in the room. They should be in the room at all times, 100% of the time. And also as a note to that for the care plan meeting, you get to choose who you want to attend that meeting. And by that, I also mean staff. So let's say you have a great relationship with one of the activity aides, and an activity aide doesn't typically attend the care plan meeting. But you want that person here because they're the ones who know your life the best. And you want them to hear this stuff. You can have that. It could be the maintenance man, because you talk to him all the time, and he's become the person who you know is a very strong advocate for who you are. He knows who you are. He knows your family. He knows information about you, that you want to make sure the rest of the care plan people that work in the building understand about you. So you have the right to invite anybody, including the ombudsman. The ombudsman can also be invited to that meeting, because sometimes you might share something with the ombudsman and you want to say it, but you're not sure if you want to say it during the care plan meeting. So you want somebody standing there next to you just to be,
Yes.
for a lack of a sense of a word, to hold your hand while you're able to say,
Yes.
this is what I want.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have that right to have that happen as well. So know that information.
Right.
Very good question, whoever asked that question. And with that right to participate in your own care, including the care plan meeting, is also how you want to schedule your day. You have the right to be able to sleep to when you want to sleep, go to bed when you want to go to bed, engage in activities or not engage in activities, to read the paper, to write letters, to read a book, to go sit on the patio, to do whatever it is that you want to do to make your day be the day that you want it to look like. Do you feel that that is something that gets honored? Or do you feel that how does it feel if you had a day like that, where you get to do what it is, sleep when you want to sleep, go to bed when you want to go to bed, do whatever it is you want to do? How does that feel?
It gets honored
Yeah.
and it feels good.
It gets honored and it feels good, and I hear fantastic.
Excited. You get like,
Excited.
oh, I get
Mhm.
to, looking forward, oh, today it's gonna be nice outside, so I'm gonna go sit outside and read a book, or we have a library that they come. Oh, I got to pick out my book this weekend, sit outside, so it brightens people's day up, I think.
Yeah, I think the only thing that for me, because I have to get up so early in the morning for dialysis, 4 days a week, I do like to sleep in. That's kind of difficult.
Yes,
That's a little
Yeah.
difficult. Primarily because, food trays come, it's a very structured environment. It's not like a lot of hospitals have that you can call in
right. when you
your
want.
meal.
Yeah.
So that I've just kind of adjusted to that and just gotten up, gotten up when I need to.
And just to speak to that, because technically, like if your dialysis is scheduled for 10 o'clock and you want to sleep until 9 o'clock, you still should be able to do that, but with that fear of missing breakfast can be, I plan I'm gonna be in dialysis until 2 o'clock. And I want to make sure I've eaten something, but they should be able to give you a meal when you want to have a meal. That goes along with the schedule, is you should be able to eat when you want to eat. And what that might look like is you might not have eggs and bacon.
Yeah.
You might have cereal and toast and a bagel. It may look different, but you still have that ability to be able to eat when you want to eat. So that's where we have scheduled people so much in long-term care that we start to treat it almost like, I want to say, you got to get up for school, you got to,
Yeah.
get your homework done, and we're all beyond that, right? We're
Right.
all beyond that.
Yeah,
And so we want to be able to do what it is that we want to do in our lives. So you should be able to have those things. It does get complicated for building, because then medication comes into play. Well, medication is being scheduled. How does that? But it can happen. There are buildings that are doing this. It's a deep dive for buildings to do this, but it works out amazingly for people. Because if you think about it, that nurse's aide who has to get everybody up at the same time and work the hall doesn't have to do that
Yeah.
anymore, because this person wants to get up early, this person wants to sleep in, this person
Yeah.
gets up semi-early, and you just go to where the needs are, and you start to learn human schedules.
Yeah.
For the most part, if we weren't working, or when you don't have that schedule, you start setting a routine for yourself, and you always get up about by this time. Sometimes you might want to stay up and watch the really late movie and sleep until
Yeah.
11 o'clock. Right?
Right.
Sometimes that may happen, or you're in that really great book, so you want to sleep in longer. You should have that ability to say, I want to sleep longer, and when I want, get up, I just need a cup of coffee and a piece of toast, because lunch is
Right.
gonna be around the corner, but I will be hungry. So when I get a piece of toast, and that is no stress on anybody. You have to provide
that's true.
a cup of coffee and a piece of toast.
Yeah.
So that's taking a look and seeing,
Mhm.
and having communications and letting people understand that we're not talking about rocket science. We're talking about how we do it at home. And we just
Yeah.
carry it forward to here, because this is home.
Right.
It is home for many. Also in regards to this, it's about activities as well. Activities we don't have to go to. Sometimes I feel like buildings are like, we've got to get that room filled with as many people as we can, because otherwise other people won't think we're doing our job as activity staff, because there's people not coming to our programs. And that can happen sometimes, but that's not the reality of it either. And, I go to very few scheduled things through the course of my life. I might have an exercise class, I might have a book group, but I don't have that every day. I spend most of my time self-planning what I want to do. And sometimes I need a nudge, because I might just sit there doing nothing for a long time and I want to do something. Sometimes I do need a nudge. I need somebody to say, hey, you want to go take a walk? Or hey, here's a great book I just got. Or hey, let's do a jigsaw puzzle. I might need a nudge, but I have the ability to not have to go to something structured all the time. Do you guys feel any of that you feel does that right get honored, that your schedule can be your schedule?
Our schedule can be our schedule.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful. I'm very glad to hear that.
The activities here at least for the most part, and everybody I know who attends, I attend most of them. And they have a great activity program here,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they are very nice and
Yes.
knowledgeable, but I don't attend any. What I do, I make bracelets all day long.
yes.
Well,
Keep
but that's okay, that's what,
right.
that's what you like, right?
Let's show off our bracelets. I
yeah.
got bracelets.
We all have-
Irma, show off your bracelets.
I need a bracelet.
You need to make a Pam bracelet.
That's
She has a
right.
bracelet.
But they a lot, they go like, above and beyond, and it would be great. If all centers did that, you know, what they do here for us.
And that's
They-
wonderful. to
And they
hear.
do offer it to a lot of
Uh-huh.
people, but not everybody goes,
No,
you know,
right.
they just say, no, I'm not in the mood or
They're
whatever,
okay
and
with
they're-
it.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
they
great,
are.
because that doesn't mean that the activity department isn't successful because
No, of
everybody in the
course
building.
not.
is
No, they're wonderful.
I love to
Yeah.
hear that. I
Yeah.
love to hear that.
No, they don't push people at all here
No,
to go, no,
no, they just
That's-
ask.
they just ask.
That's good. And it sounds like then you can structure your time the way you want to structure your
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
When we get a calendar
Yeah.
of the activities on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
in addition to a monthly calendar. And so people are really aware early in the morning. So
Yeah,
if there is something, they can
right.
adjust their schedule so they can
Exactly.
attend.
Times are usually the same.
Yeah,
You know, we have our morning stuff at 10:30 to more stuff,
So
but
it creates an expectation. If I want to do it,
yeah.
I know that there's something to go on. But if I don't want to do it,
Yeah.
that's perfectly fine
Yeah.
as well.
could
And I
manage
go
your
to
day.
exercise because they know everybody's in activities, Anna is off.
And that goes right along with that right to have that, right to make your own choices.
Yes,
So
right,
that's really great that that's being honored so well for
Yes,
all of
yeah.
you.
yes.
That's really good. So let's see, I'm trying to think if there's any other rights that really appeal to you guys, that we want to really make sure that we talk about.
no, I think the one just about if you do have an issue, you do have the right to bring it up. And I think sometimes people are afraid. Sometimes they just think, oh, that's just whatever. And they don't put enough value on the fact that something has happened that disturbs them.
Yes.
And they're, quite honestly, some have experienced
Yeah.
feelings of retribution. Other people have, actually, they're just fearful,
Mhm.
because they're afraid that somebody is gonna do something.
My blood
And
pressure
we-
is 180 because I'm afraid of tomorrow.
Oh,
So that's that fear of retaliation, retribution, like you said,
yeah.
and that is not a good way for anybody to feel, is it?
No,
How does it feel when you feel that people are treating you differently because you spoke up?
Oh, like you said, anxiety, just scared, like you said, the next day.
So your
she's gonna
safety
be
feels
here.
threatened.
Yes, right,
Yes.
you don't, right,
Yeah,
like who's gonna take care of me then? Cause that person
right.
doesn't take, so you feel neglected,
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we,
yeah.
yeah, and they feel people feel
Helpless,
helpless.
yeah.
So there's something that I want to bring up. It might not be that big of a deal, but I want to bring it up. But if I do bring it up, somebody may think the staff or they might start treating me differently.
Right,
And then I'm not going to get that care that I needed to have.
Mhm.
And so is this that big of a deal or can I swallow hard and just take it?
yeah,
This is starting to sound a little bit like bullying.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I am also upset that I'm 73 years old and I can't stand up for myself enough so that it doesn't bother me. Why does it bother me so much? That makes me angry at myself.
Well, I think that that's a genuine thing. We used to be able to do and now we can't. And now I'm dependent.
Right,
Mhm.
because the service that they're
Dependency.
providing is so intimate kind of,
Yes.
it's frustrating,
it's very frustrating.
Yeah. And to have that caregiver who understands it, who works with you, who becomes a care partner, I should say,
yeah,
not a
Right.
caregiver. They're not giving
Right.
you care, they're partnering with you and allowing you to use your strengths to your ability, and they're helping to compensate for the strengths that you have lost,
Right,
but you did have.
yeah,
you know, and that understanding by
Makes
staff.
you vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then when you
Yeah.
become vulnerable, you don't want to speak up because you're afraid then that person that you're dependent upon is going to change the way they provide that care to you. And it's going to get really
Dicey.
anxious, unliving,
comfortable.
uncomfortable. You have blood pressure, you may have a physical reaction.
Me
Right.
too.
Yeah,
And that's all extremely, extremely genuine. These are genuine things that are happening.
Yeah.
So what can we do? I mean, what can we do about that? Because this is a difficult topic. We here as ombudsman, no, don't bring that up because I'm afraid that people are going to retaliate against me. I'm afraid that I'm going to not, I'm going to be served last in the dining room. And they're going to ignore my call light. They're going to put that water right out of my reach.
Yeah,
So
call
I can't have
lights
that
out
cup
of
of
the-
water that I requested.
yeah.
You know, so those are the things that can happen. So what can we do? What can we do about that?
Well, what I've noticed, I try to, help people, they'll bring it to me. And I'll go to the nurse, DON, head of nursing, and I'll bring it up to her. And people don't like their names told,
All the
So
time.
I'll kind of in general be like, I noticed, the first floor, like I was doing this with water. People aren't getting water. So I'd say, you know what, take a look, go down there, and certain people or nobody's getting water. But it's like one person that may have told it to me.
Uh-huh.
But that way, nobody knows exactly who, reported it. Cause I don't want that person to get, have that staff member
Backlash, yeah.
backlash.
And that's great because you're using the resident council president
Well, and Pam
in,
too.
yeah, both of you, the president and vice president, in a manner that they can help articulate voices, amplify a
Yes.
voice.
Right.
But they are also so warm that they feel like family, you know?
Your resident council president and vice
Yes.
president,
Mhm.
that's wonderful.
Thank
You
you.
guys are very blessed to have a good resident council group. So that's really, really good that you guys have that here.
I think that's important in all centers.
It
And I
is.
hope that they can,
Yeah.
so other people speak out.
I was gonna say that the resident council, it often is people will come there because they know that, when we close those doors,
Yes.
nobody can go back out and talk about what has been said. And what oftentimes people discover is other people have
Yes,
been having similar experiences.
right.
And that boosts their courage.
Uh-huh.
And
yes.
so then you can work, we can talk to them and say, do you want to go forward with this? We can help you. We can go with you. We can act on your behalf if you're really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And sometimes again, it gives them the strength to say, yeah, I think, it's not just me. I
Yeah.
thought it was just me, but it's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
Usually it's not.
No. that's
Usually
right.
it is not. That's great.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's not
exactly
great that people are getting.
No, but-
No,
It's great that it's power in numbers.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
right,
yeah.
that's exactly right.
So you mentioned the resident council meeting. And the resident council meeting, it sounds like they're doing a good job here of keeping that private. Because there are long-term communities where it's not held very
Oh,
confidentially.
really?
And so that people start to lose that voice.
Yes, yes.
So what makes your meetings feel very confidential to you?
We're on closed door like we would be here.
Is there staff involvement?
We do have once in a while, right? We have people that do come in, but for the
On
most,
invitation only.
yes,
Okay,
On
yes.
invitation only.
on
Yes.
invitation only. Otherwise, is there no staff member involved in that room?
No, there is.
It's somebody from activities is
Right.
usually in there to
Notes.
take notes.
Okay,
And
you guys desire that, you asked for that. It's not because
yes,
you have the right to
Yes.
meet in private.
Yes, right.
So
right.
it's, a staff member can only be in that room
right,
if you
Okay.
request for that to happen. And many buildings, that is the way it operates because they're taking the notes so that it can get documented.
right,
But that person has to be held to confidentiality.
Yeah,
An administrator, a director of nursing can't say, who was it who said that?
right, right.
You know, they can't do those sorts of things, so that's really important, that that person, that staff person understands that they're, what happens in resident council, it's like Vegas,
Right.
stays in resident
Right.
council.
Yeah, the only
Right.
thing that I share is every month we nominate 5 staff members who we feel have been exemplary in their delivery of care or their responsibilities in the building. And if I see them, I'll always make sure that I tell them, you were mentioned, we want to thank you, and just so that they know that their efforts have been noticed.
We all should do more.
Yes, that's important for other centers and ours as well. I think, you know, yes, there's some negatives or problems with staff. But they also, like Pam said, they deserve to be recognized. And I think that centers should have staff appreciation month. You know, and for us to be able to know
Mhm.
who it is and do something special or write a letter, you know, so it's encouraging to the staff.
I just
too.
make everybody praise.
Yes, make bracelets, whatever we want.
There
to
you
Which is-
go.
Yeah,
I heard from
Yeah.
a long-term care community, one of the things that they did is the residents did a car wash for the staff.
oh,
Oh,
how
And the
cool.
staff liked that more than
Oh.
getting
Oh, yeah,
a $50 gift card from
Right.
Target.
right.
They
Yeah.
enjoyed getting their car washed by the residents. They just said it just felt so good that they cared about that.
Oh.
You know, that it made them just
What a
feel
good
good.
idea that
It's kind of fun, and having a car wash is always fun.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
It's always a fun thing to do on a nice day. We might not be entering into car wash weather anymore.
no,
But are there other things that we can do?
right,
Yeah.
That can just say thank you? Because before we started this meeting, we did say that as well. It's very important.
Yeah.
We have a tendency sometimes for these conversations to go very negative.
right,
And we want to
Sure.
make sure that we're not just talking about the negative, because we don't live in a negative world.
No,
You do have a lot of amazing things that are happening that are beautiful here.
yes,
In my own home, I've got the good, the bad, and the ugly too.
right,
It's every home has the
Yeah.
good, the bad, and the
yeah,
ugly.
right,
And, but we focus in on the good, because that's what
Try
gives us
to.
that ability to be able to keep
Yeah.
on thriving in
Yeah.
relationships and working together and overcoming some of that bad and that ugly.
Make
You
you
know,
feel good.
it makes you feel
Yeah.
good. It speaks to the heart again, right? To
Right.
know that you've got good people that are caring for you.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
we
we
have
wanna-
quite a few
Oh,
stars.
yeah.
We
Yeah.
really do.
Yes,
And,
we do.
Our
and
center.
we're very grateful.
That's
for that.
wonderful.
Yeah.
That's absolutely wonderful, and I'm really glad to hear that. I really, that to me is just a really great comment to be able to,
Yeah.
and a tribute to all of you as well. Part of it is it's not just the staff, it's the people who live there. And when you create, because it's relationships. So if you are able to share in a productive way and not with the arms crossed saying, you guys are
Right.
horrible people because you're doing,
Yeah.
that's going to make people react that way, right?
Right.
So we need to make sure that we're doing that back and forth, that we're giving positives to each other.
Yeah, it's how you approach. I've told people that it's how you're approaching the subject, you know,
Yeah.
the tone, everything, you know, how you present it to
Yeah.
other people.
So as we're closing this meeting today, do you guys have any words of what residents' rights, any advice to people moving into long-term care that currently live in long-term care or staff that work there? Any advice that you can give on how to make sure that people's rights or why they're important? Any advice along those lines?
Speak up, ask questions when you're
Advocate
coming
for
into,
yourself.
yes,
Mhm.
advocate,
Speak up,
Yes.
ask questions, advocate for yourself.
And just become familiar with what rights are available to you. I think that sometimes people don't realize
Right.
Yeah.
the,
and
the large scope that they cover.
Did you guys hear it right when I was going through those that you were like, I didn't know I had that right? Anybody hear that right?
No.
yeah, I probably.
Well, I
did.
know, we talked, Rose, a little bit at the beginning, before, I think, before we started this conversation about you didn't know about the doctor situation.
Yeah.
That you have the right to be able to choose your own physician. And also, when I talked about electronic monitoring, that you have the right to camera in your room.
Yeah,
A couple of you guys were like, really?
Yeah, I didn't
Did
know
that-
that.
I didn't- I didn't- I didn't know quite what that meant.
Yeah, electronic monitoring sounds like you got a bracelet on.
Yes.
Well, that's
Right.
kind of what I thought.
Right.
You're a prisoner.
I wasn't quite certain what that
You
meant.
get an electric shock. You can only go
Right.
this far.
Sure, it actually is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Right,
it means that you can have a camera in
Yeah.
your room. And if anybody is
They
interested
might
in,
rephrase that.
yeah, that's right. If anybody's interested in that or any of the other rights, to please look at the YouTube channel, because we have dove into some of these topics, retaliation, the right to electronic monitoring, the right to have your own physician. These are some of the topics that we've dove into in the past, and there are YouTube videos out there on our site that I know Stephen has put into the chat. Stephen, were there any other questions or comments that you wanted to share?
No, I did not see anything, any other questions.
Okay, great. Well, I just want to thank each and every one of you guys for being a part of this today. You've given me enthusiasm for the work that it is that I do. And I hope that we can continue to have conversations like this. And it was such a pleasure to meet
thank
each
you.
of
Thank you.
Thank
for-
you.
Oh, yeah, letting us
Thank
speak.
you so much. With that, I'm going to stop the recording. Let me just stop the recording.